The exit for Angola has absolutely nothing to do with anything other than the manipulation of the Western powers, Mr. Biden. Okay. Now, I find it ironic that Angola president had a meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden, who announced a $1 billion investment in African rail corridor, decided that day to exit the OPEC cartel. Biden used billions of dollars as a carrot to push them away from OPEC. Why? Because every time there's upward pressure on oil prices for whatever reason, the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, what's happening in the Red Sea with the Houthi rebels dropping bombs on oil shipping containers, they throw a huge wet blanket on it by a huge market sell-off, or by doing things like Angola's president pulling away from OPEC. And the news is just saying how OPEC is falling apart. And the reasoning for Angola pulling away is they don't think OPEC is making a difference. They're not making a difference in prices. What's the point of being a part of this? That's a lie. The OPEC cartel has a lot to do with where the price of crude is today, but it's all a plan. It's all a ploy to keep downward pressure, keep the wet blanket on the price of a barrel of crude, because this is all about an election. This is all about staying in power. This is all about the U.S. currency keeping the strength of the U.S. greenback, of the power of the American economy. Because you lose, if oil prices goes to a high level, you're funding the Middle East, the very people that want to drop bombs on America, that hate our guts. It's enriching Russia. It's enriching Iran. It's enriching all those people. Not only that, it causes even more inflation, making the Biden administration look weak. Okay. Now, so they're going to do whatever it takes to keep the price of a barrel of crude, and they threw billions of dollars at Angola's president to get him to get away from OPEC. Okay. This is going to piss off the Middle East. OPEC, Iran, Russia, all of these guys. And I truly believe that the plan for the Houthi rebels is to put upward pressure on oil to keep the price of a barrel of crude. So imagine this. Iran continues to attack. And we do very little to counter Iran. If this situation in the Red Sea, where the Houthi rebels are attacking, if this escalates and the U.S. gets more involved and Iran gets involved, this could add an additional $20 to $40 per a barrel to the price of crude. And they want this. Iran wants to draw us into a war. OPEC wants us to go into a war. Russia wants it, because Russia is going to lose this war if the price of a barrel of crude drops. Saudi Arabia's economy cannot continue. Iran cannot continue to build these drones and continue to build weaponry and nuclear arsenals, if they do have them, which they will eventually. They can't continue to protect themselves and flourish without a high price of a barrel of crude. And they control 40% of the world's oil supply. And if they shut down the waterways to prevent oil from flowing, and it draws America in, and Iran starts attacking, I guarantee you the price of a barrel of crude is going to go to the very high levels, and it's going to have the effect that OPEC is wanting, okay? And so the more we turn a blind eye to this, the more courageous Iran becomes, because they're getting away with it. I mean, we have yet to really sanction the hell out of them. We have yet to even attack them. Okay, we're attacking proxies in Syria, in Yemen. I mean, it's crazy to me that in the Red Sea, our aircraft carriers are taking out Houthi-backed drones and missiles, just shooting them out of the air versus going and taking care of the root of the problem. How long are they going to turn a blind eye to this? But the longer they turn their backs on this, the more provocative Iran and all of his proxies are going to become. I think all this news about Angola pulling away and OPEC falling apart, it's It's a tactic of the left, and it's the plan to put a wet blanket. Because oil prices, or if it was based on physical barrels of oil, supply and demand, and geopolitical tensions, the price of a barrel of crude would be high 80s to upwards of $100 a barrel, but it's not. If it was based upon scarcity, if it was based upon the geology of U.S. shale, because everyone's talking about how shale is producing a record-breaking numbers, but it's not going to last. They have to, for every million barrels of oil that they produce out of shale, they have to find another 450,000 barrels of oil every year just to maintain that million. So in order to produce one additional barrel of oil, for every million barrels of oil, they have to produce an additional 451,000 barrels of oil to have one extra barrel of crude. They're running out of ducks, already drilled uncompleted wells. They drilled a lot of wells over the last couple of years, and they just sat there because of COVID. Now they're just now bringing those wells online. So everyone's wondering, how can we have less rigs and an increase of production? Well, they're completing wells that have already been drilled, and they are expanding the length of these horizontal legs. I mean, before, they could only go a couple hundred feet. Now they're going miles sideways underneath the ground. All this is doing is increasing the size of the straw, but the shake is the same. You are sucking it out faster, and it looks good on paper. And everyone is in the news is talking about how we are producing so much oil, but it shortens the shelf life. And so what's going to happen next year? Are we going to be able to maintain that number by finding an additional 400,000 barrels of oil per million? Or are we going to start declining? When we start declining, and when Middle East tensions continue to rise, which they will, Iran, OPEC, Russia, Saudi Arabia, all of those countries, they want higher oil, and they're pissed at Biden for manipulating Angola. They're pissed at Angola. Who knows? Maybe they will retaliate because of that. All right, guys, I'm Shawn Pruitt, president of Kingdom Exploration. If you're interested in this channel, please subscribe. And if you're interested in getting involved in oil and gas, we have a 40-well oil program. If you need end-of-year tax benefits, go in the description below, click on the link, fill out the form, and I would love to chat with you. All right, guys, Merry Christmas. Thanks.